What if every time you handed over a $20 bill, your brain registered it the same way it registers physical pain? Because neuroscience says that's almost exactly what happens. And the moment you switch to cards, somebody figured out how to turn that pain off. Here's something nobody tells you when you get your first credit card. The bank isn't just giving you a convenient way to pay. They're quietly removing the one thing that was keeping your spending in check, the feeling of loss. Think about the last time you paid cash for something expensive. Maybe it was a car repair, a fancy dinner, or even just a tank of gas. You counted out those bills, handed them over, and felt something, a little wince, a small reluctance. That feeling has a name in behavioral economics, the pain of paying. And it is, quite literally, your brain's built-in spending brake. Now think about the last time you tapped your card. Same transaction, same amount of money leaving your account, but that wince. Gone, the reluctance. Barely a flicker. You tapped, it beeped, you walked away. Your brain barely registered that anything was lost at all. This isn't a willpower failure. It's not a character flaw. It's your brain being exploited by a design feature so effective that entire industries have been built on top of it. The payment system you use every single day was engineered, deliberately or not, to mute the one psychological signal that was supposed to protect your wallet. And here's the uncomfortable truth about your money brain. Once that pain signal is muted, you don't just spend a little more. You spend differently. You spend on things you wouldn't have chosen if you'd felt the full weight of handing over the cash. You upgrade. You add on. You say yes when your gut, if it had been properly informed, might have said no. So in this video, we're going to pull back the curtain on the pain of paying. What it is, why it exists, and exactly how modern payment systems have been designed to make you feel it as little as possible. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll never look at a contactless payment the same way again. All right, let's get into the mechanism. And I promise to keep this plain English, no neuroscience degree required. Your brain has a region called the insula. Its job, broadly speaking, is to process unpleasant experiences, things that feel wrong, uncomfortable, or threatening. Researchers studying spending behavior found something fascinating. When people were shown prices they considered too high before making a purchase, the insula lit up. The brain was treating an expensive price tag the same way it treats mild physical discomfort. That's the pain of paying in action. Now here's why this matters. That pain signal is actually doing you a favor. It's your brain running a quick cost-benefit check. Is what I'm getting worth what I'm losing? When the pain signal fires strongly, you hesitate. You negotiate. You put the thing back on the shelf. When it fires weakly or not at all, you just buy. The critical insight is this. The strength of that pain signal depends almost entirely on how vivid the loss feels. And nothing makes a financial loss feel more vivid than physically handing over paper money. You can see it. You can count it. You watch it leave your hand and go into someone else's. The loss is concrete, immediate, and impossible to ignore. Digital payments, cards, phone taps, buy now pay later apps work in exactly the opposite direction. They create what researchers call coupling-decoupling, which just means they separate the moment of enjoyment from the moment of payment. You get the thing now. The pain, if it comes at all, arrives later on a statement full of other numbers, blurred into abstraction. Your brain is extraordinarily good at responding to what's vivid and immediate, and extraordinarily bad at responding to what's abstract and delayed. Payment technology has, intentionally or not, learned to exploit that gap with remarkable precision. The more frictionless the payment, the quieter the insula, the lighter your wallet gets. Let me tell you about Maya. She's fictional, but I promise you'll recognize her. Maya earns a solid income. She's not reckless. She pays her bills on time, puts a little aside each month, considers herself reasonably careful with money. She carries almost no cash because it's inconvenient, a little old-fashioned, and frankly her phone pays for things faster than fumbling for bills ever did. One Saturday, Maya goes to a farmer's market with $60 cash, a rare occasion because the stalls are cash only. She buys some vegetables, a jar of honey, a loaf of bread. She's careful. She counts her change. By the end of the morning, she spent $42 and feels, genuinely, like she's been a little indulgent. She notices every single purchase. The following Saturday, she goes to a regular grocery store for roughly the same kind of shop. Card in wallet. She picks up the vegetables, the honey equivalent, the bread, but she also grabs a specialty olive oil she's been eyeing, upgrades to the organic option on 3 items, adds a bottle of wine because it's the weekend. She checks out, taps her card, glances briefly at the total $89, and thinks that seems about right. Same person, same general intention, nearly double the spending. Maya didn't make a conscious decision to spend more at the second shop. She wasn't trying to treat herself. She simply didn't feel the friction that would have made her pause and reconsider each choice. The upgrade to organic didn't feel like a decision. It felt like a preference. The wine didn't feel like an addition. It felt like a natural part of the basket. That is the pain of paying, or rather, the complete absence of it, working exactly as the research predicts. Not dramatic overspending, not a splurge, just a quiet, consistent, barely noticeable inflation of every single purchase, every single time. Here's where it gets genuinely uncomfortable, and most people never think about this part. We tend to frame the pain of paying as a quantity problem. You spend more money when you use cards than when you use cash. And yes, that's true. The research is pretty consistent on that. But the deeper issue isn't just the amount. It's the nature of what you choose. When the pain of paying is fully switched on, when you're counting out physical bills, you naturally prioritize. Your brain is doing an active negotiation. Is this specific thing worth this specific amount of real money leaving my hand right now? That negotiation tends to favor things with clear, immediate, practical value. The staples, the necessities, the things you actually came for. When the pain is muted, that negotiation doesn't happen the same way. Instead of choosing, you accumulate. And what you accumulate tends to be the upgrades, the impulse additions, the things that were marketed at you while you were already in a low resistance state. Not necessarily things you value more, just things that were easier to say yes to in the moment. Researchers looking at grocery receipts found that card users didn't just spend more overall, they also bought more unhealthy food. Not because card users are less health conscious, but because the reduced friction lowered the threshold for giving in to impulse items. The pain of paying was acting as a filter, and removing it removed the filter on everything, including choices that had nothing to do with money directly. So the twist is this: the pain of paying wasn't just protecting your bank balance, it was protecting your decision-making quality. When it goes quiet, you don't just spend more, you spend less intentionally, on things that reflect your actual priorities less accurately. Your card isn't just emptying your wallet faster. It's quietly lowering the standard of every financial choice you make. I want to be direct with you here because this is the part that most videos skip, the real world, compounding cost of a muted pain signal. Let's put some rough numbers to it. The research on cash versus card spending suggests people consistently spend somewhere between 15 and 30% more when paying with cards versus cash for equivalent purchases. Let's be conservative and say you personally spend just 10% more than you would if you felt every transaction the way you feel handing over a $50 bill. If your monthly discretionary spending, food, entertainment, shopping, subscriptions, is around $1,500. 10% is $150 a month you're spending without really feeling it. That's $1,800 a year. Over 10 years with even modest growth if it had been invested instead, that's not a trivial number. That's a vacation. That's an emergency fund. That's a meaningful chunk of a retirement balance. But it's not just the money. Remember what we said in the last chapter. The pain of paying wasn't just a financial filter, it was a decision quality filter. Multiply that slight lowering of intentionality across every purchase you make over a lifetime, and you're not just looking at a dollar figure. You're looking at a pattern of choices that gradually, quietly drifts further from what you actually value. And here's what makes this particularly insidious. Because each individual instance is so small, so unremarkable, so completely normal feeling, you never get a clear signal that anything is wrong. You're not making obvious mistakes. You're just consistently, gently spending a little more than you would if you felt the full weight of every transaction. The pain of paying is supposed to be the alarm bell. When it doesn't ring, there's no moment that prompts you to course correct. It just keeps not ringing quietly for years. So what do you actually do about this? I'm not going to tell you to stuff your wallet with cash and abandon modern payments. That's impractical and honestly unnecessary. The goal isn't to maximize your financial discomfort. The goal is to recalibrate your pain signal so it fires at the right moments, with the right intensity. First, try what I call the cash anchor. For one category of spending where you know you tend to drift, restaurants, groceries, clothing, whatever yours is, switch to cash only for 30 days. Not forever. Just long enough to resensitize your brain to what those amounts actually feel like. You're essentially recalibrating your insula. After 30 days, when you go back to cards for that category, you'll find the phantom sensation of the cash leaving your hand has a way of persisting, at least partially. Second, introduce deliberate friction into digital spending. The one-tap, zero-friction checkout experience is engineered to keep your pain signal quiet. You can disrupt it by deleting saved card details from shopping apps, requiring yourself to type your card number manually for anything over a threshold you set. That small delay reintroduces the pause that your brain needs to run its cost-benefit check. Third, make your spending visible in real time, not in retrospect. Most people review their spending at the end of the month, when the purchases are already made and the pain signal is irrelevant. Instead, check your balance or a spending summary at the start of each day. Brief, vivid, regular exposure to your actual numbers keeps the loss more concrete in your mind. It partially substitutes for the vividness of physical cash. None of these are radical. None of them require you to change your fundamental relationship with money overnight. They are just small acts of reintroducing friction where it was deliberately removed, giving your brain back the signal it was always supposed to have, so that when you do spend, it's a genuine choice, not a quiet default. If you found that genuinely useful, share it with someone who's never once questioned why paying by card feels so easy. And subscribe, because every week on this channel, we go one layer deeper into the hidden psychology driving your financial life. Your money brain doesn't switch off when it comes to retirement. That's exactly where these biases cost the most. I built a free tool that shows you the real math, no spreadsheet required. It's called Granary, links in the description.